Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it's just past midnight on Friday, August 22nd. Day one, that makes this the news for Thursday, August 21st, day 1275 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. And I see the peeps are coming in. Anthony Tommy Tom is here. Nicola Jones. Good evening, Raven. Hey, Akron. Hey, Kelly. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Poppy Josh. Hey, Mike Kelly. Hey, Dawn. Hey, Jackie. Pug and Mahone. How you living? Jasmine. Good evening. Hey, Debbie. Coffin. I'm sorry to hear that. Have you taken anything for it? That I'm bump. Hey, Sharon. Hey, Bjorn. Tisno. A friend of mine was at a beach in Croatia recently. And the pictures she posted of the water, of the mountain, I mean, it just looks gorgeous, man. I got to get out there. Hey, Gare. Hey, Jerry-O. This guy whose handle is just a Z, like, Russian Z, he wants to know if I work. What do you guys think? Do you think I ever work? How many videos did I post today? I don't even know. Doesn't matter. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Sharon. Hey, Frank. All right, so here's the thing. If you do what you believe in, you never work a day in your life. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, I couldn't keep doing this if it weren't for all of you. And I would like to call out, I didn't see him come in yet. I don't know if Chris Carter is here. Hey, Mad Mike. Hey, Ed. Alice, good evening. I do want to highlight Chris Carter as the sponsor of tonight's live. If you see Chris, please thank him. Chris joined the Patreon at a level that he gets 2 live sponsorships a month. And this guy has been, honestly, if Chris wasn't there in the beginning, I don't know that I would have stayed on here. All right. So big thanks to Chris Carter. I was a little bit under the weather. I'm probably going to be a little low energy tonight, guys. Even though there's so much good news. I mean, I really did almost drag my ass out of bed last night just because there was a lot of good news. Among that good news is the flamingo, which we will talk about, Raven. That's definitely among the good news. Now, hey, super user. Thanks, Steve-O. So here's where I want to begin, because I think that this is so important. Last night, we saw the 3rd largest combined missile and drone attack of the war. Over 600 aerial targets coming in. 577 of them are 577 reasons, I believe, in Ukraine. Right there. It's 574 drones of mixed type. It's funny, the Air Force always used to say Shahed drones of the 131, 136 class. Today we're getting a lot of mixed type attacks. 574 drones, 546 shot down or taken out with electronic warfare. That's a 95% interception rate. Kudos to the mobile defense units and all the guys out there that are shooting these things down. Good job. Missiles. They sent 40 missiles last night. 4 Kinzhals, hypersonic missiles. 31 shot down. That's a 78%, 77.5, almost 80% interception rate. To get an 80% interception rate on ballistic and hypersonic missiles, there were cruise missiles in there too, is extraordinary. Just extraordinary. There is a narrative, and everybody that follows this channel knows that it's Kremlin bullshit of the first order. But it's also true. That's the tricky part here. The fact is that the Russians do grind forward, that they have been grinding forward at tremendous cost and tremendous loss. But of course, there's loss on the Ukrainian side too. But I want to put it in perspective. This idea that the Russian horde is surging forward is a crock of shit. In the last 1,000 days of this war, over 2 years of war, Russia has advanced. They have gained 1%. It's not actually 1%. It's 0.97% of Ukraine. In 1,000 days and 1 million men. So this idea that Russia is winning is nonsense of the first order. But of course, Russia is a much bigger bully than the smaller Ukraine, and so Ukraine has taken its lumps badly. I don't want to give anybody the impression that the Ukrainian armed forces are having a field day out there in the Donbass. It's a fucking nightmare. But it's worse for the Russians. I promise you, it is worse, far worse for the Russians. Now, where I want to start today is last night's combined missile and drone attack. As I said, the Russians shot 40 missiles, a mix of ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles. 2 of those cruise missiles, 2 caliber cruise missiles, were fired at, I don't know, are any of the moderators in tonight? It seems we've attracted some very unsavory folks. Unsavory folks. 2 caliber cruise missiles came in last night in the far north of the west of the country, all the way out on the other side of the Carpathian Mountains, Transcarpathia, the other side of the Carpathian Mountains, 20 miles from the border with Hungary and Slovenia. Boom, right? In an area, a region of Ukraine that has never once been hit by drones or missiles in 3.5 years of war. What was the target? An American plastics manufacturer who makes coffee machines and printer cartridges and has not a single contract with the Ukrainian military. There is nothing military about this facility. It employs 2,600 people, all of whom live in Ukraine, but many of whom are actually Hungarian, right? There's a Hungarian enclave inside of Ukraine in the far western part of the country. And so of the Ukraine in the far western part of the country. And so of the 2,600 people that work in that plant, it's a 50-50 mix of Hungarians and Ukrainians. Many of them were injured. Now, even though this area has never been targeted, there have been air alarms and training to go to the shelter, right? So last night when the air alarm came, there have been air alarms and training to go to the shelter, right? So last night when the air alarm came, all the workers proceeded to the covered shelters. There were injuries sustained, but as I understand it, none of them are life-threatening. The fact is, this is an American-owned and operated business. The company that owns it, I meant to look them up too. In early hours trading, before the markets actually opened in New York, the stock listed on the NASDAQ for Flex Limited, that's FLEX, was down 1.02% in early morning trading ahead of the open. And I meant to look up what the close was to see if it took a hit on this. No, it's up 0.63% today. So it's a big business. Vanguard Capital's got $407 million in stock. They own about 3.2% of the company, 3.22. So it's a big company, and it doesn't appear that this hit on the facility has had any significant impact on the stock. I think the stock rebounded because the damage was less severe than originally thought it would be. But that's not the point. The point is that Vladimir Putin just had his way with Donald Trump in the United States of America and now is openly targeting American business in Ukraine. Do you guys remember? Do you remember when Trump was trying to push through the minerals deal and he said, Ukraine doesn't need security guarantees. I'm their security guarantee. When I have American business in Ukraine, Russia won't dare hit it. There's lots of American business in Ukraine. The Boeing offices were targeted with a Russian missile just in June. So this notion that somehow Trump, by divine grace, is going to protect American business in Ukraine is a load of shit. And Putin saw to it today that load of shit is visible to anybody who's willing to pay attention to what's going on over here. Now, this comes on the heels. This attack against American interests in Ukraine comes on the heels of a Russian drone blowing up a field in Poland and Russian drones, armed drones, entering Lithuanian airspace. Russia is probing for a NATO response. It wants to know how far it can push things. Russia believes NATO will always back down like Trump. Trump will always chicken out, like we saw him do in Alaska. What were the three things Trump had to keep focus on? Insist on a ceasefire, like he did so strongly on Thursday. What was the first thing he did? Was give up the idea of a ceasefire. He had to not give away Ukrainian land. What did he do? He gave away Crimea. Said Ukraine's going to have to accept land swaps, and they're definitely not getting Crimea back. He had to not mention that Ukraine couldn't be in NATO. He had to insist on security guarantees. What did he do? He gave up Ukraine and NATO. Then there was all this talk about there'll be security guarantees, we'll be involved in that. Not anymore. That ship has sailed. What's his name? Colby Eldridge, the Deputy Defense Secretary. He made it very clear today that America will not be participating in any security guarantees for Ukraine. That is the job of the Europeans. So the one thing that maybe he thought he might get, a bullshit Article 5-like guarantee for Ukraine, that ship has sailed. That's not happening. What was the one win that came out of Alaska that Trump thought he had sealed up? A bilateral conference between Zelensky and Putin. And where did the U.S., in their infinite fucking wisdom, suggest that happened? Budapest. Budapest. Does that ring a bell for anybody? I mean, if you want to say to the Ukrainians, hey, remember that deal we cut where we totally forgot about you and didn't follow through on any of the promises we made you? You know, the one from 1994, the Budapest Memoranda. Well, listen, we want to fuck you up the ass again with the same bullshit. So why don't you come back to Budapest for another railing? Outrageous. The deafness, the tone deafness of this administration in its willful ignorance. It's obscene. Where did Putin suggest he have the meeting? In Moscow. Right? Like saying to the fly, hey, come right here into my web, Mr. Fly, said the spider. Like Zelensky is going to go to Moscow where the people live, have failed on at least 13 separate occasions to assassinate the guy. He's going to go to fucking Moscow. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Lavrov said that the underlying conditions must first be resolved before a leader-level summit can happen. So Trump is not getting his bilateral meeting. He's literally getting nothing, and Putin is getting everything. Putin got the photo op in the Russian press. They say we are isolated. We are not isolated. I was wined and dined and red carpet treated by the American president. Russia is a world power. He got all that PR, that propaganda, to poison the minds of his own people, if it was even Putin. I mean, the jury is out on that boy about who this person is, or if the real Vladimir Putin is even still alive. We don't I wouldn't suggest that any of us know the answer to that question. We really don't. That's how little we can trust the Kremlin's in the Kremlin. Yushakov, assistant to Putin, said that no decision on leader-level meetings have been made, and went on to say that NATO troops in Ukraine are a non-starter. They will not accept NATO peacekeepers in Ukraine after a peace deal or as part of a negotiated ceasefire. Security guarantees for Ukraine are also a non-starter unless they include China. There's something weird going on. The Russians are pushing hard to have China tied to Ukraine's security guarantees. And I don't know why. I mean, clearly, in the relationship between Russia and China, Russia is the vassal state, right? Like we saw China change its borders to include an island in a river, just took it away from Russia. Putin never said a word. They are dependent on the Chinese. That 30% of their imports come from China. 36% of their exports go to China. They are completely dependent on China and, of course, on Chinese dual-use electronics for their weapons. Somehow, it looks like the Chinese want the Russians to insist that European security concerns are somehow tied to Chinese interests. That would be quite a win for the Chinese, boy. Quite a win. Putin can't make peace. Peace requires concessions. Any concessions to the West or to Ukraine and the Russian people will tear Vladimir Putin into many little pieces. It is just that simple. And this is all against a backdrop. Now, who was it? It was John McCain, wasn't it, who famously said that Russia is nothing but a gas station with nukes? The only thing is that gas station is under pressure. These strikes against Russian oil infrastructure, which have been increasingly effective, have led to an export ban. Russia's no longer exporting refined oil products. They're keeping it all to themselves, even though that's where they really make their money. There are shortages for Americans, that's long lines at the pump. And when I say long lines, I mean kilometer-long lines at the pump. All across the far west, the temporarily occupied territories, and those regions that border Ukraine. And curiously enough, in the very far east, out in Amur province, Kamchatka, out that way. And I think the reason for that is that as empires die, it's the fringes that get neglected the most and first. And so we're seeing that play out in Vladivostok, 11 time zones away from where I am here in Kyiv. The Trump-Alaska summit, there is just no doubt that Putin got everything he wanted, including a photograph of American servicemen on their knees, literally rolling out a red carpet for him. The same bastard that put bounties on the heads of those servicemen when they were in Afghanistan. Outrageous that America could be defiled and really obscenely humiliated in this fashion. And Putin got everything he wanted, and Trump is now left playing taco again, walking away from the negotiations. He's saying he's going to step back from the negotiations. He needs to see Zelensky and Putin meet, which is never going to happen. Never going to happen. Zelensky, for his part, he had his meeting with the European leadership, and the European leadership supported him beautifully in front of Trump. And those meetings went well. In fact, Zelensky seems to have gotten what he wanted. A pledge from the Americans to sell him $100 billion worth of weapons. $100 billion. While America buys from Ukraine $50 billion worth of drone technology. And that deal means that the Ukrainians will be able to build at scale those drones for the Americans on Ukrainian soil, supporting the Ukrainian economy, which is so badly Swiss cheesed from this war. People, I've talked to so many people who've lost everything. Their entire businesses, things that they spent their lives building, gone because of a Russian rocket attack. That's it. And now it's start over from scratch. It's a tough scene, man. There's no insurance for Russian missiles. Now let's take a look at the front line. The first thing to talk about is the so-called breakthrough, which everybody here knows was much more a breakdown than a breakthrough. Nod to Anthony Tommy Tom on that one. It was much more of a breakdown than a breakthrough. Since the inception of the so-called breakthrough in the Dobropilla direction, just north of Pokrovsk, right, the bunny ears breakthrough, according to the Ukrainian Armed Forces and National Guard of Ukraine, since the operation commenced, the August 4th, the Ukrainians have KIA 1,116 Russians, wounded 412 Russians, taken prisoner 38 Russians, destroyed 12 tanks, 9 armored vehicles, 30 artillery pieces, 124 motorcycles, and civilian cars, and have contained the incursion. So that bit of Russian propagandist nonsense bullshit is done. Nobody can talk to you about the breakthrough. You can tell them what it was. It was a breakdown. That cost the Russians hugely. The settlements of Griska, Rubizny, Novovodanye, Petrivka, Vesele, and Zoloty Kolodayas have all been liberated, freed, or if not liberated, at least there's no more Russians there, none alive anyway. In Luhansk, we saw 2 ammo depots that supplied the Pokrovsk offensive cook off for hours and hours and hours. Good hits there. In the Tourette's direction, the 12th Azov Brigade of the National Guard repelled an armored assault. I say repelled. They destroyed it before it reached them. Before the Russians reached the contact line, they were swarmed with drones and eliminated. That's how that went. The 425th Separate Assault Brigade have kicked the Russian Federation forces out of Dnipropetrovsk. Now, there's some discussion about that, whether the Russians are really fully out of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast or if there are some areas that are still under Russian control. I think we're going to see mop-up operations there because, look, the land that Trump was so willing to trade away, somebody else's land, right? It's like the equivalent of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and parts of North Carolina that he was just going to give away. And let's say all of North Carolina where there are no Russian soldiers. None there. Just give it away. And in return for what? Well, Putin's going to get out of all those other oblasts he's in. I'm sorry, you mean the 13 square kilometers of Dnipropetrovsk? You're going to give away 19,000 square kilometers for less than 400 square kilometers in all of Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv. This is insanity. So what we're seeing is we're seeing the Ukrainians pour on the heat to move the Russians out of those areas. The Russians are being pushed back in Sumy, back to the Russian line. That movement is clearly happening. VDV forces there have been surrounded. Lots of prisoners have been taken. Many others have been eliminated. And some Russian units have now been pushed back to the internationally recognized border between Ukraine and Russia. Again, same thing in Dnipropetrovsk. And we'll see what happens up in the Volchansk direction. And in that new tiny little incursion, I think the Russians have 24 square kilometers, something like that, of Kharkiv there. It's nothing. It's certainly not going to it's certainly not enough to trade away 20% of your fucking country. Give me a fucking break. Outrageous. The Ukrainian Air Force keeps hammering Tetkino with AASM hammers. Air-launched, blowing up, softening up Russian positions all over Tetkino, while Ukrainian forces are pushing from the east to encircle Tetkino. We got the most amazing video today. It's a guy in his driveway, and the driveway has a gate, right? And it looks out at the highway. And he takes video of a Ukrainian MiG-29 taxiing for takeoff. See, these MiGs are small enough to use a highway as a improvised runway. And because if the Russians know where they are, they'll bomb them, the Ukrainians regularly rotate these things just to sections of highway that are big enough to handle them, where they can hide them in the bushes overnight, and then they take off again from the highway the next day. And so there's this amazing video of this guy just watching the plane taxi past his house. It's a good one. Juzzy? Was it Juzzy? It was Juzzy on reporting from Ukraine TV that had that video posted. I saw it today. At 3:30 a.m., military unit, this is last night, 95408 on the Kherhovsky Peninsula near Sevastopol, Crimea, which is a military intelligence unit, was struck by Ukrainian drones. Now dig it. The coordinates were provided by Ukrainian partisans. And we've talked about the Ukrainian partisans, how they risk their lives every day to get this kind of intelligence to the Ukrainian armed forces. Hey guys, there's a new military intelligence HQ in this abandoned army base on the tip of the peninsula. That's where you should fire your rockets. Now, it must have been an extremely successful strike. And the reason that I say that is because local authorities were quick to put out the story that it was just a training exercise. It was just a training exercise. Well, not according to the Military Intelligence Directorate of Ukraine, who claimed it was their drones that hit the base. So it must have been a good hit. Ukrainian Special Operation Forces destroyed an echelon with fuel in Jankoy on Crimea last night. Early this morning, about 5:30 in the morning, residents reported explosions in Jankoy near the railway yard. Drone, what does that say? The drone campaign hit logistics in Voronezh at the Sararovka traction substation. Now, we've talked about the fact that the Russians have 54,000 kilometers of electrified railway. And so all along the railway are these substations that provide the electricity for the trains. Dig it? Right? It's a big deal. Well, taking out the substations kills the trains. You kill the trains, you kill the military logistics that get ammunition, food, fuel, and medicine to the front line. And if you don't have those things, you cannot fight a war. Ukraine is taking the long view on this thing, denying Russian logistics and starving them on the vine. That's what they're doing. Well, Adam, the fact that you call them goofy could be part of it, but I'm just going to get rid of you so that we don't have to answer that question anymore. Why can't you behave yourself? Now, we got satellite image from the Caspian Sea showing the merchant vessel Port Olya 4, which was sunk in a Ukrainian military intelligence directorate operation. But we don't know how. We don't know how that ship got sunk. The satellite image is very clear. The ship is clearly burned and sunk. Now, we've talked about this on this channel literally for the last 2 years. People will ask, the Iranians are sending drones on ships across the Caspian Sea. Why doesn't Ukraine interdict them? And until very recently, Ukraine has not had the capability to interdict them. This is the first one of these we've seen, an attack on the Caspian Sea by Ukraine. Now, I had floated the idea that maybe the Azeris are in on it, that the Azeris told the Ukrainians, look, you come in, you do what you got to do, we're not going to pay any attention, we don't know what's going on, it has nothing to do with us, right? And I still think that's not impossible, or something like that isn't impossible. But in this case, we got to talk about the Flamingo. So everybody here knows that Ukraine just put out video of its new Flamingo long-range missile. This thing is supposed to have a 3,000-kilometer range, a 2,000-mile range. That puts the entire Caspian Sea, as well as Moscow, St. Petersburg, Murmansk, and even Arkhangelsk, into range. This weapon has a 1-ton warhead and flies at about the speed of sound. A 1-ton warhead. All of Ukraine's long-range strikes have been limited by the carrying capacity of their drones. The biggest Ukrainian drone carries a long-range drone, carries a payload of 250 kilograms, about 500 pounds. That makes this missile 4 times the explosive power of Ukraine's biggest long-range drone. The average Ukrainian long-range drone only carries about 100 kilograms, about 200 pounds of explosives. That makes this missile 10 times as big as the drones that slammed into the Alabuga drone plant out in Tatarstan, right? 10 times as big. Big enough to sink a 400-meter long cargo ship. big enough to do that. And when analysts speculate about this, there are two targets that they talk about maybe are the targets that a combat-ready Flamingo was used in. Now, why do we think that there's a combat-ready Flamingo that's been used? Because we saw the video. Ukraine released two videos, one of a test of the new missile. The other, they said, was a combat mission of this missile. And it is, I saw somebody there mention that it's actually a UK missile. It's a fair point to make. This does not appear to be. It may be domestically produced, but it does not appear to be a Ukrainian design. It appears to be the Malion, M-A-L-I-O-N, or Malayan, I don't know, UK defense firm that makes a missile called the FP5. It's very clearly that missile. An amateur like me can look at it and that's the same missile. Or it's so close that it makes no difference. So this does go to the point, I think, about the importance both of international partnerships and an ability to be flexible. Because in the crucible of this war, we have seen the Ukrainians make extraordinary technological leaps and production leaps when it came to the production of drones and drone warfare, right? But they're practical too. If somebody's got a missile that they can produce in country and that meets their needs and they can produce it cheaply, then why on earth wouldn't they license that missile for mass production inside of Ukraine? Isn't that an easy thing to do? It is. And God bless the British, because I'll tell you, the UK has led on this Ukraine thing while America has just dropped the ball completely. I mean, let's be honest, right? It was the UK that first got the Ukrainians tanks. It was the UK that first got the Ukrainians long-range missiles at all. But it was the UK that was first, right? Taking nothing away from all the other partners, especially the Baltic and Nordic states, the Dutch, the Germans, the French. Yeah. So, but anyway, so the UK is leading on this thing again. Of the two targets that are most commonly discussed, the Druzhba pipeline oil pumping station in Tambov and the ship in the Caspian. The GUR has not told us what they hit the ship with. But in the official GUR statement regarding Tambov, it says it was a drone strike, not a missile strike. So for my money, that says, I think there's a good chance. I don't know, right? I'm not saying I know. I don't know. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing to the sinking of the Olya 4 as the first use of a Flamingo long-range missile. The evidence is pretty compelling in my opinion. So we'll see. We'll see. Eventually they will tell us, or we'll see the Flamingo in operation hitting other things. It's 1,000 kilo, a ton warhead. That's going to make a difference. That's absolutely going to make a difference. If the Russians are standing in line for gas now, what's it going to be like when the Ukrainians are producing 7 of these a day? According to SBU authorities, right now, Ukraine is producing 1 a day. So 7 a week of these Flamingos. But they expect by the first of the year to be producing 7 a day, 7 times the output. So they could conceivably go from 7 missiles a week to 50 missiles a week, 49 missiles a week. That's quite a capability to evolve in the midst of a full-scale invasion. Hats off to him, I'll tell you, boy. Ukraine targeted an air defense system south of Donetsk City The cook-off was spectacular. But I don't think that it was as spectacular as when the 27th Pechursk Brigade of the National Guard took out an S-300V surface-to-air missile system in occupied Zaporizhia. That cook-off is extraordinary. I mean, really, it must have been loaded with ammo. Loaded. Now, the last thing that I have tonight, I know I forgot some things. I really was trying today to write it all down, but so much has been going on. Dig this. Oh, I have two things, sorry. Real quick, down in Kherson, according to the Ukrainian Navy, there is technically a Navy here. The Navy and the unmanned system forces working in conjunction destroyed a Russian patrol boat in the waters off Kherson. Now, dig it. How they did it was they painted, the term painted or lit up the target using a laser, right? So you're talking about a laser guidance system. And they used a drone-mounted laser designator to paint the target for a laser-guided missile to come in. Launched, of course, from an unmanned sea drone of all things. Like, just imagine a laser designator. That's exactly what that is, Raven. Did I say something different? But they launched it from an unmanned drone on the Black Sea. I mean, if we're living in an age, right, of laser designation at sea, and then mission execution from an unmanned drone at sea, it's Robo-War, Seawolf. It really, really is. Good evening, Adele. All right, the very last thing I want to mention here. Are there any old NetWare IT managers here? Anybody remember Novell NetWare? Anybody out there remember that? No? BIP does. BIP does. I used to teach NetWare migration to Microsoft platforms. Very old, which is why I taught migration solutions, right? Because nobody uses it anymore. I think there's 500 of them left in service. At one time, they owned the market. Now, dig it. In a particular kind of object-oriented computer landscape, you have what we call mesh networks, where all of the objects in the network talk to all the other objects in the network. You have a root distribution node, which is kind of an endpoint. And then from that, you have intermediate nodes that communicate to the root nodes and out to the leaf nodes, the terminal objects in the chain. But everybody talks to everybody, right, through this layered hierarchy. The big problem with drones is electronic warfare, signal interference. So the big question that everybody's wrestling with is, how do you create a world where whatever distortions the enemy throws at your technology, they have such a strong signal between them that it doesn't interfere with them. And Ukrainian drone experts have created this mesh network. Now, it's still in testing, right? We're a long way, I think, from it being a capability. But the reality is, the Ukrainians, driven by AI, are building what amounts to an endless drone swarm, impervious to electronic warfare jamming, and completely autonomous in its directive execution. I mean, Seawolf, you said it, right? Wars. Yep. Yep. So there is lots of good news. There's lots of reason to be happy. Not to be happy, but to be hopeful about the situation here. Lots of reasons for it. Not to detract from the very real suffering that the barbarian hordes visit on this nation every day. That's a real thing. And it exhibits itself in all kinds of ways. So, that's my top line news. We'll go to Q&A. Let me just thank again Chris Carter, who is the sponsor of this live, because of his Patreon membership. If you are not a Patreon member, consider. There's Chris Carter. Everybody say thanks, Chris Carter. So Chris is on the Patreon. He's a long-term supporter of the channel. Many thanks to Chris. Big thanks to Chris. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps groups on the Book of Faces. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. And, of course, to the moderator team, Pete, Jay, Travis, Maddie, and Feisty. And I think I saw Feisty tonight. There's Feisty. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Chris. How you doing, buddy? Hold that thought for a second, Anthony. So, big thanks to all the people that helped make this happen, especially the Patreon folks and our live supporters. Guys, if anybody can sponsor a live or if anybody can help out, I am kind of broke. And I'm really worried because the rent is due in like 9 days. And I'm a little bit worried. But I'll be all right. So if anybody can sponsor a live or whatever, PayPal's in the description. I do not have a live sponsor for tomorrow. Or join the Patreon, please. I just had a guy join the Patreon today at the shark level. Thank you to that gentleman whose name escapes me right now. But thank you. All right, so questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need, anything from anybody about anything. You do now. You do now. Oh, thanks, Sewell. I told you I'm on cough medicine, right? Like I wasn't well the last 2 nights. That's why there was no live. I mean, I was really unwell last night. We had the 3rd largest drone attack of the war, and I slept right through it. I got up once all night. Me too, Greg. I'm so with you, man. I cannot wait to see the flamingos in action. I think we according to the Ukrainians, we already have. We just don't know where. I'm much better today, Feisty, and I'll be even better tomorrow. But I was a little bit under the weather. Well, Mike, there wasn't just a barbecue, right? We actually did a series of 5 barbecues. Fed over 100 people. Thanks to the generous support of Arna, Keith, and Tony. So we were able to do 5 barbecues. 1 for the troops, 4 for my English-speaking club, and I'm very grateful to everybody that supported that effort. But I did spend a bunch of my own money. I say my money, your money, Patreon money, live sponsorship money. And now I'm kind of broke. But, yeah. Yeah, it was great, Mike. I'll tell you, it really was great. I wish we were doing one this Saturday, but the weather has turned. It's not going to be a nice day. Yeah, a lot of really great things happened at those. We had some guys from the International Legion show up one day just by coincidence. They didn't know anybody. They just happened to be in the same park that we were in, same beach we were on. And we had a couple of POWs who had recently been released after more than 3 years. These guys were captured in Mariupol right at the start of the war. And it was a great honor. I'll use the word honor. It was a great honor to be able to serve them and do something nice for them. It definitely was. I had one 16-year veteran of the Army tell me that she had not been in a social setting with civilians and felt so normal in like 11 years. So it was, yeah, I would gladly fight for the Ukrainian military instead of listening to bullshit from armchair idiots like you. But I don't qualify. I don't pass the physical, and I don't have any experience. So I am stuck on TikTok. But I did not come to Ukraine to get on TikTok, that's for sure. The ribs last week, you know, it took me several weeks to get it right. But the ribs last week were perfect. I was very happy about them. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Seawolf. And I'm glad you're there for us tomorrow. Thank you, pal. Honest to God, man. Ugh. Okay, we got about 8 minutes. Again, big thanks to Chris Carter, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Chris joined the Patreon, right at the beginning. Honestly, Chris, some days I wonder if I would still be here if it weren't for your early support. That's a real thing. There were a couple people at the beginning, and Chris was one of them. Parda is a fixture here. I mean, Parda, I think, was on my very first live and is still here almost every night. As so many other people are. Right. Has anyone seen that American guy who moved to Russia? I don't know which one you're talking about. Two of the three we know are dead. We believe the third is dead, but we're not sure. Apart from barbecues, can I ask what you're doing in Kyiv? Yeah, JT, I do a lot. I do a bunch of different stuff. None of it very important or interesting. But the biggest thing that I do is I spend my time on social media like TikTok, trying to communicate to my fellow Americans the importance of the continued defense of Ukraine. And to all the Ukrainians out there, I am very sorry that I am doing such a terrible job. If I did a better job, maybe we would have some more patriots here or something. Do I think Putin is stalling to gain ground before he'll negotiate? Yes, babe. Very clearly, that's what he's doing. Thanks, Clive. I do try. That's the other thing that I do. That's a big thing that I try to do here is the main purpose of this channel is threefold, right? To disambiguate Russian disinformation. That's the first thing. Second thing is to try to keep Ukraine top of mind and get its support. And then to act as a kind of platform for synergies among those who want to do good things for Ukraine. As so many people can tell you that come through Kyiv. Well, anyway, doesn't matter. What do I do for a living? I don't do anything for a living. I do this for a living, JT. This is absolutely full-time. Yeah, Anthony Tommy Tom says it beautifully there. Trump playing with 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That's his constant refrain because his followers have the memories of goldfish. And so if they hear he'll do something about it in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, when they hear it again, they think, oh, the 2 weeks still isn't up. And a year later, when he says in 2 weeks, they're like, oh, it's still 2 weeks. Wow. Ooh. Trump always chickens out when it comes to Putin because Trump knows he would not be the president of the United States if it weren't for Putin. And I think he knows, too, in his heart of hearts, if Putin falls, he's next. When Russian money stops pouring into the United States with its corrupting influence, the maggots are done. They're done. Well, what 53? You are a poet. You're an extremely accurate poet. Chrissy Locke, you're absolutely right. I apologize to all the goldfish. I didn't mean to be insulting to you. Vance got booed the other day. Well, that's a start. Doesn't anybody in the United States know how to make a Molotov cocktail? Good night, George. Thanks, pal. Heroim Slava, Jan. Pugga Mahone, you're in Germany. The condition was, doesn't anybody in the United States? Hey, Chef Deb, how you doing? Easy to teach. There's a hot sauce brand here that prints a shirt that has the recipe on it. It's really, I got to get me one of them shirts. Yep, William, I don't doubt that. I just can't prove it. Poison is a woman's weapon, Bip. Get a girlfriend. Oh. All right, well, it looks like we're done. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, big thanks to Chris Carter, Lars with the Discord server, Nightshade with the Peters Peeps group. How long do I think Russia can keep up against Ukraine? Well, Kenneth, I was very disappointed to hear Lithuanian intelligence? I'm pretty sure it was Lithuanian intelligence. Unless it was Estonian intelligence. No, I'm pretty sure it was Lithuanian intelligence. Lithuanian intelligence wrote recently that they believe that Russia can last another 3 years. I can't believe that's true. I can't. Just looking at how the sovereign wealth funds liquid assets, which Russia is dependent on to keep its army on the move, has dwindled now down to less than $27 billion, down to 167 tons of gold, from a high of 700 tons of gold and $150 billion. Whew. Kenneth, I keep saying that there's just no way the Russian government can survive the December reconciliation. I think the December budget reconciliation or the January year-end budget reconciliation is going to be the end of them. They're not going to be able to hide the losses anymore. And if they start printing money, that money will quickly become worthless. So my money is on January 1st. Did you hear that Lithuania has put a no-fly zone on the border with Belarus? Did you hear that Lithuania has put a no-fly zone on the border with Belarus? I mean, it's so lame that we can't get a no-fly zone over Western Ukraine. It's outrageous. Some people in Poland, man, their trigger fingers are itchy. Well, thanks, Dave Foll. Dave is saying basically that that he can argue facts with people because he tunes in here. Did I get that right, Dave? Does that seem like a fair representation of your comments? Good night, Marius. Buonanotte. Well, thanks, Dave. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, guys, it's 1 a.m. here, so I'm going to call it a night. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And hopefully I'll see you on the Patreon. Take care.